Morning.
Morning.
I sifted through a pile of decomposing leaves, poultry bones and feathers, rotting vegetables, and God knows what else in search of the enemy, scraps of plastic. Any chance I had, I used a new device or machine. When someone asked, "You want to give it a try?" I always said, "Sure," no matter how awkward I felt. My favorite contraption peels butternut squash, one by one, several hundred in a couple hours. I will refrain from telling you about the lung gun vacuum we used while processing turkeys 2 weekends ago. I harvested all types of produce. Nothing tastes sweeter than a carrot pulled from the cold ground on an October afternoon. Unless it's an ear of corn, still wet with dew, the milky liquid dribbling down my chin as I waited among corn stalks 2 feet taller than my head. Or maybe it's the edgy excitement of swigging from a glass jug of raw milk only an hour from the cow. I discovered that if you spend a couple hours pulling leeks and garlic, you will reek the rest of the day despite a shower. And yes, I stand before you with the hands of a chicken killer. Don't mess. I harvested my own Thanksgiving turkey, and it tasted damn good. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Mrs. Reade. I've been a teacher here for 25 years. I spent the past 5 months on sabbatical in Vermont researching the agricultural revolution of that greenest of states. Mr. Reade and I have lived there for more than 20 years. I had a hunch that a powerful movement was sweeping Vermont, and my research proved right. People in Vermont are unique, to say the least. Am I right? Oops, Ben? There's a great t-shirt that sums it up perfectly. I'm from Vermont, and I do what I want. But these independent and determined people also demonstrate on a daily basis incredible generosity. I left every farm with a bag of whatever they proffered: veggies, grains, fresh yogurt and milk, meat and poultry and eggs. By definition, sabbatical indicates the notion of rest. Many people take sabbaticals to rest from work. It struck me recently that my sabbatical was anything but relaxing, and it was all of my own design. I took the sabbatical not to rest, but to experience, study, learn, and write. To push myself out of my comfort zone and see where I ended up. I explained to a friend that I approached this 5-month hiatus from teaching with the same pace that marks my work at school: 16-hour days and packed weekends. The one difference is that I could wear whatever I wanted and not be slave to classroom bells and set school schedules. Yes, I took a break from school life, but I replaced that with a new classroom. Vermont farmers are intent on education. They share their knowledge, skills, and passion with one another and with the people who consume their food. They are developing a model for sustainable agriculture for the 21st century that could serve as a blueprint for the nation. Even as the global economy falters, Vermonters are finding environmentally friendly ways to farm and feed their people. Small scale and local are the keys. The future of farming is in its past. In other words, farm the way your grandparents did, or in the students' cases, your great-grandparents. From July on, I tracked down more than 90 people, traveled to their farms or businesses, and interviewed them. I asked to hear the story of how they got into farming and why they chose Vermont. I made cold calls and sent emails to complete strangers, yet in most cases they responded and said, "Come on by." In exchange for interviews, I offered my free and very unskilled labor in their field. Vermont is all about trade and barter, a practice I adore. I drove more than 9,000 miles in Blueberry, my truck. I recorded at least 100 hours of interviews in which the farmers shared their joys and frustrations, their challenges and triumphs. By November, I was double, triple, and even quadruple stacking my interviews each day. Farmers wanted to talk. I jammed in 6 sessions last week, and I still have more to go. To put it mildly, I met fascinating, passionate, and intelligent people. I've always said that farmers possess an intelligence and a set of skills that most of us common folks lack. I was humbled day in and day out by what these experts in the field have packed in their brains. I worked alongside people of all ages and backgrounds, with dreadlocks, beards, and piercing that would definitely not pass at TP. I headed into the field with strangers and learned never to prejudge because that skinny little dude with funky tattoos also spends his winters coordinating volunteers to help reestablish farms in Haiti. The girl with the chunky dreads and a small bone through her earlobe was finishing her master's degree in alternative heating sources for greenhouses. The old guy milking cows has a doctorate in zoology and introduced a pasture fencing system that revolutionized grazing of animals in Vermont. And the young woman wrestling while dressed as a green pea pod earned her PhD in agronomy and oversees 2,000 cutting-edge field research projects. I rode shotgun inside the cab of a tractor, and the exhaust smelled like warm popcorn oil, because the guy had developed an intricate system of growing sunflowers, pressing them for their oil, and converted his tractors and farm equipment to run on sunflower oil, a new biofuel. And that man, a genius, never went to college. He would have been bored to tears. My own master's degree meant nothing when I was trying to round up a flock of chickens who literally flew the coop. The field crew doesn't care about my title back at school when there are crops to be harvested and the farmer's market starts in an hour. I was still called rookie on the turkey processing line despite 25 years of teaching. And I may be a runner and in pretty good shape, but miles logged doesn't make me any less beat by the time I heft that umpteenth sack of fresh picked corn or potatoes or beets or carrots or whatever. During this journey, I listened more than I spoke. I posed questions to the farmers and paid attention to what they said. As I drove in my truck, I thought about the people I had met that day and reflected on what I had learned. I planned for the day to come, orchestrated possible connections. I had so much to piece together that even daytime public radio broke my concentration. My mind was constantly engaged to the point where I had a hard time slowing it down at night. I tried to read the paper, but invariably I would land on an article that triggered some thought about farming or agriculture, and I would find myself reaching for my journal. I basically exhausted myself each day, turned on public radio, jazz, or classical at night, made a dinner from whatever farm produce I had, and fell into bed. A bowl of yogurt or fresh milk and granola in the morning, and I was off on another day of field education. I also had some fun, making my way through my bucket list. I answered phones for the Vermont Public Radio Fall Fund Drive. I took a chainsaw class. I attended dozens of workshops, meetings, and lectures. I volunteered to coordinate waiters for a major fundraiser dinner held in a meadow. But the waiters clearly had more experience than I did. My most rewarding community service was gleaning for the Vermont Food Bank. Gleaning means going into the farmer's field after he's done with the crop and harvesting whatever remained. The vegetables were fresh and of excellent quality, and the tons and tons of produce we saved helped feed Vermonters in need through community food pantries and homeless shelters. I volunteered on the gleaning team about a dozen times. I mucked stalls and monitored food waste bins at a local agricultural fair and earned my favorite t-shirt that proclaims "Compost Crew" in bold letters on the back. Basically, if a farmer or an organization needed an extra hand, I stepped up. What will I do with this experience? I'm not sure. I'm in the process of capturing the essence in words, and the pages are beginning to pile up. I would sit down to write in the evening, and 4 hours disappeared in a flash. Hopefully, I can mine something worthwhile from within. I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, I'm indebted to Mr. Smith for allowing me to partake in this odyssey. I'm sure Mr. Karate and others picked up some loose ends. I also thank Mr. Lee Smith and Mr. Gedrick for taking on my classes, Mr. McDougall for stepping up as sophomore form advisor, and Mr. Reade and our crew of advisees for pulling off 2 advisee dinners without me. Lastly, I also thank Mr. Josh Frost because he was my first farmer teacher. On September 25th, 2008, he said, "Up on the tractor, your turn," and altered my life. My valedictory advice is this: spend some quiet time thinking about your life. Learn to be comfortable alone. Challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone and pursue new ventures. The difference between a dream and a goal is a plan. How hard are you willing to work to enact that plan and achieve your goal? Do well this month.